Sense.
Hello, everyone. We want to thank everyone who is joining us this evening. We are very excited to discuss the upcoming Oscars. We definitely have a lot on our plate. But here we are with Are the Pandemic Oscars Still Oscars So White? That's part of the conversation we're going to be having tonight. I'm here with special guests Calvin Blockman and Popfest contributor Ahmed Ashur. So Ahmed was supposed to come later. He came early. We're very excited to have you. So I just want to ask, I know that Calvin, you've seen a lot of the films, and Ahmed, you've seen some. So how are you guys feeling about tonight?
Well, I'm excited just a little bit for the Oscars. I'm more excited to talk to you guys about them. These things tend to go super long and drawn out, and hopefully they're not as predictable as they have been in the past. But overall, just looking forward to a good evening.
Definitely.
Yeah. Same. I mean, the Oscars have for a long time been this very upper echelon kind of ceremony for the fanciest, the most prestigious according to popular demand, or I guess what most people think. So it kind of feels like this inaccessible thing for the layman to break into. But I think especially with this lineup of best picture nominees, I feel like it's never been more kind of accessible than now, or at least feels like a little bit more. I feel like I've got a little more skin in the game, so to speak. So I'm excited.
Definitely. And I know sometimes, it's the bigger pictures that are all lining up and sweeping awards. And now maybe there's more art house projects and there's more from smaller directors, maybe, independent film houses, and then newcomers. So I feel like all of that is really exciting. And I'd love to see that represented in the films that we're going to discuss. So we're going to go over the big five. And what we mean by that is Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Original and Adapted, and Best Actor, Actress. And that's a conversation we want to have a little later as well. But there are three big films that we're thinking, they're going to win the awards. They've been nominated or have people in the projects who are nominated, or we think they should be. So those films are going to, the first of those films is going to be Judas and the Black Messiah. Now, Calvin, I feel like you have a lot to say on this film. So,
yes.
So go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, well, we'll start with just like some of my initial thoughts. I was like super excited when I heard about this project. When it was announced, it would went straight to the top of my radar, things I wanted to see. And they announced like all of the streaming titles on HBO Max. So I was really excited that it was going to be accessible to like a lot of people. And then it got added to the Sundance lineup, and I had tickets to Sundance, so I even got to see it a little bit early. So I've seen this movie 3 times now, premiered at Sundance, when it premiered on HBO Max, and then again for the Oscar wrap up. But really, I was just super excited to get a Fred Hampton story. That's not something that we often see depicted on screen. You get the big hits like Malcolm and Martin. So it was really nice to see some of his story shared on screen. So it's also just like really exciting to see it nominated so many times. 6 nominations, I think it has tonight. So hopefully we can grab a couple of those. But overall, just really pleased with the film, really excited for its success, and can't wait to see what goes next for all of the cast and crew members.
Definitely. And I'm glad to hear that they've gotten so many nominations this evening. But one thing I want to ask you is, I know in the past we've seen, I feel like the Black Panthers have been so misrepresented in media, in real life during the 1960s and 70s, the way they were represented in news and newspapers. But even in film, when they're referenced, it's something that people, express fear about, and there's so much misunderstanding. So can you talk about this project and what it was like to view it, and just shedding more of an accurate light on who the Black Panthers were?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the big selling points of the movie for me, is that it is not just the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers are a militant organization who are all about violence and aggression. We see lots of scenes in this film where they are teaching education and feeding other families and other people, and reaching out to not only people of color, but just as he says, he wants to build a rainbow coalition, reaching out to all oppressed people and all oppressed groups. So I was really happy to get that. I wish there was more of it, not necessarily from Judas specifically, but just more of that in general, that we didn't have to stay in such a stereotype within that demographic, but we could show more of what that organization stood for, both here and overseas. Not only were they represented here in the States, but something that isn't eligible tonight, but I really liked as well, is a movie called Mangrove that features Black Panthers. So really excited with what they did with the movie.
Yeah. And that brings up another kind of question that we wanted to get into, which maybe you guessed from our title, but are the Oscars still so white? So when we see this kind of representation, do you think that, I guess a big question is, why are these movies coming out now? Is it because our voices are being listened to? And, this is what America wants, is what the audience wants. And, there's directors who are finally able to come up to the plate and make these films. Yeah. Or is it bigger studios who might be pandering? So is it better representation for us? Or, it's kind of a complex topic. So I'd like to hear both of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I think it was in 2015 or 2016 that the Oscars So White kind of hashtag came about, and it was a huge deal on Twitter, and I think everyone was pretty like shocked at how far the kind of like the zeitgeist was demanding how progressive everyone felt like the media kind of entertainment industry was getting, and then to just face like a season where everything was nominated for any person of color, it was pretty shocking. I think it was a watershed moment for a lot of like industry kind of higher ups, So ever since then, I think we're all kind of really sensitive to it. I think we're all kind of keeping our eye out for like, is this going to be something like, are we going to see any people of color in this? Like, how authentic is this? It's just like having films with people of color in them anymore. I think you're seeing a higher demand for just stories from a different lens, from like a person of color's perspective, not just like having like an actor who's of color in the film. So I feel like it partially is going to be, like reactionary to the Oscar So White, but it's also like I think the opportunities for filmmakers has also increased too, has like really exploded in the last 10 years, just as far as like distribution outlets and technology getting cheaper and more accessible to filmmakers to be able to make really high quality films. I think that's also changing why we're seeing so many films with like people of color in them, basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the tweet just popped up. That's a huge opportunity tonight for all of people who identify with those groups. And talking specifically about Judas and the Black Messiah, they have 2 nominees right now for supporting, both in Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, kind of like sharing that supporting role. Which is interesting because it's a biopic and you would assume one would take the lead and the other would take support. There's a little bit of politics there where it feels like they're trying to clear the way for Chadwick Boseman to win and just like get out of the best actor race. But still, one of them's going to fall to probably Daniel's going to end up winning tonight. But what the film does that I really enjoyed was just making it compelling from both sides. It starts with Bill and it ends with Bill, Lakeith Stanfield's character. And it's just interwoven throughout, like both Fred Hampton and Bill and what they're going through, both very evenly balanced. So you don't feel like you have to choose a hero or a villain, but it's like compelling either way. So that's 2 of the nominees that I know that I'm really happy and excited for. But to answer your question about like, more projects getting made and more people being cast, I think that like we have to judge progress in sort of increments. Like we're not going to do the change all at once, right? We're not just going to wake up tomorrow and like racism's over and diversity is everywhere. Like we have to take wins where we can. And that's always been part of like people of colors and like oppressed people's experience. Is like, okay, we have to take this little and make it work a lot, you know. And we see that in several different stories even nominated here tonight. So taking this victory and like, yes, we've been nominated, we may sweep the categories, but not resting there. Like, next year we still have to hold the Oscars accountable and continue to take advantage of the projects we're given, to show them that like this isn't a fluke or that we deserve to be here, even though like, why should we have to prove that? But yeah, that's most everything.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point, because you don't want it to be an anomaly, right? Because that doesn't make a problem. Or, oh, this one director is exceptional, but we're not looking at Black art or Asian art as a whole and respecting it, you know? So, right. No, that's a great point. And I want to mention, oh, what is this? It's always popping up. All right.
We're gonna get some hot takes from the
Ahmed, you can take that one.
Right.
Illustrious Tomi Lahren. All right, let's do this.
Be able to spread COVID, right?
Here we go.
Not just the Hollywood elites. We want it for school children as well. So thank you.
Yeah, let's see. Just a reminder: your kids aren't able to go in-person schooling, but the Hollywood liberal elites are allowed to gather and celebrate themselves and their trash movies at the Oscars. Oh my God, what a hot take! There's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, I mean, you know, give it up to Tomi Lahren for throwing in her hat. She's always got to have something to say, you know. Usually where her, you know, puts her mouth where, you know, where it doesn't belong. I feel like there's nothing really. I feel like, you know, the Hollywood elites thing is totally legit. I'm gonna give her that. The Hollywood elites thing is totally legit, right? It is kind of like a celebration for ourselves, right? But you know, I mean, what do the kids have to do with it? Why are you dragging the kids into this, Tommy? You know, and actually, kids are going in like 4 times a week now. Some places.
That's true.
Okay. All right, Issa. Calvin, you want to read this one?
Yeah, this weekend I'm writing for all the unseen artists in film, music, fashion, and visual arts. I'm working with @Life Water, I assume that is, to highlight representational blind spots in these industries with our new initiative, Life Unseen, Life Water Partner. I gotta pull up Life Water, see what that is.
Yeah, what's that? That sounds interesting. Life Unseen. This weekend I'm writing for all the unseen artists in film. Cool. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, you know, Issa's got so much clout. Like, she's doing like good by, you know, these. She's paying it forward. I feel like it seems like in this tweet anyway. You know, she started off on YouTube, this brilliant awkward Black girl series, and so now she's, you know, hanging out at the Oscars.
Yeah, she's always been super supportive. I remember a few years back, it was the Olympics. Someone asked her, you know, who she was rooting for, and she said, "Everyone Black."
There you go. There you go.
Very consistent. Represent. Appreciate her holding it down.
That's awesome.
Awesome. But that's another thing that I actually wanted to touch on in response to what you two said. But I think the really important thing, especially when it comes to racism and some of the issues we're dealing with in our country, obviously we saw Black Lives Matter protests in response to George Floyd's death last year. And then there's a recent spike in anti-Asian hate crimes. And obviously people of color are dealing with racism all the time outside of these moments. But I think a really important thing, because some of us, like, we live all over the country, may not have access to diverse communities. Movies are actually a really important way that we can connect with different people and their stories and just learn organically. And I want to point out Issa because her series is a fantastic way to do that. You kind of come into her world and it just feels really natural. And, you know, but you're also at the same time learning about, you know, her life and everything. So I just want to ask, how does Judas and the Black Messiah tap into that? Obviously, you know, this is rooted in history, but coming into this film and maybe this world, and like, how do you think people can learn and connect, and what kind of notions do you think might change?
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. It is unfortunate that a lot of things that are depicted in movies like Judas and the Black Messiah are still relevant. It's unfortunate that the lessons taught there are like something I can go out and apply to my life tomorrow. So it's me personally, I always like come back to a few key pillars, and like celebration and education are really, really big for me, and like the things that I believe in and the things that I'm passionate about, and also the things that are actionable for me. So with the movie like Judas and the Black Messiah, like being heavy on that education piece, it makes it easier for people who are looking to take action. It enables them with the right resources and the right tools. And movies, like, it's a biopic, it's a work of fiction, sure, but it is like rooted in reality. And for some people, that's the only access they have. Not everyone's gonna go to the library, the works of, you know, Nelson Mandela or something like that. Like, they're gonna pop on the movie on HBO Max, and maybe that we can connect to them that way. So I'm happy that like movies like this exist and are accessible like to a lot of people that are looking to go out to a protest or try to figure out where they fit in the mix and how they can make an impact and serve and everything like that.
Yeah, you know, Calvin, let me ask you, how do you feel about did you check out Black Klansman last year? Did you get a chance to see that film?
Yo.
Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Am I back? Did I dip?
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I finished my talk and everybody was frozen. I was like, okay, no, yeah, that's good. That's good.
No, you're good, man. So did you get a chance to see Black Klansman last year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you know, I feel like these two films are relatively comparable, and I just wanted to ask you tonally, as far as tone, as far as like relevance to how informative they are. You know, what how do you feel these two films compare on like the as a resource for people to kind of just get their feet wet? Because, you know, films cannot replace textbooks, they can't replace education and research, but, you know, as a way to get people introduced to like these characters, like people might not know who Fred Hampton is, or might never know unless if they watch this movie that's popped up on their HBO subscription. So how do you feel like those two films compared to each other?
Yeah, I feel like they're for sure operating in the same sphere in that regard. Spike is always educating in his films. Always. Sometimes it's so direct and it like cuts the fourth wall, or characters like speak directly to camera. Like, that is always happening. Or it's pretty subtle and like he challenges the audience to dig a little bit. So for a movie like Black Klansman, like, that is for sure one of the key themes there. And Spike is more aggressive in his challenge, let's say. Judas and the Black Messiah has the benefit of being a biopic, so it doesn't need to sort of sugarcoat anything. It's like just trying to depict the events as they happen. But yeah, Black Klansman for sure is very much like in your face about the problems with the system and how we can fix them. And for Spike, that's not always easy to get across, just like looking at like his stuff across his works. And that's I think why he tries so many different tactics. But personally, that's what I appreciate about a lot of his work, is that it's not just one note. He comes to a different project and approaches it differently.
Totally. Yeah. Well, then how do you feel like Shaka King approached it? How do you think his take transformed like the film and made it like, you know, its own kind of thing? How did you think he handled or what was special about his take on this story?
Yeah, the energy is so high in this movie at points that is like, you can like, it's electric. You can really feel it. And then what that does is when he does slow it down and he does get soft and sensitive and emotional, like the contrast just creates so much more clarity for each of those sides. So that's something that I really love. Like, it's a biopic, so you get the big speeches and like Daniel Kaluuya like is like giving it his all there. But then like you also get the soft moments with Dominique Fishback where it's like just them, you know, talking about how do we build a future in this life. And so that's just focusing on Fred Hampton. Now you add in Bill O'Neill, you know, quote unquote, the villain of the film.
Right. Yeah.
But he's portrayed in a way that like certain people could be sympathetic to what he was going through and the actions that he took. So like kind of I mentioned earlier, him being able to balance both of those sides, both of those characters, and give them equal footing across just really gives you a sense of how complex and how difficult times were like that. In situations where it's not just like all skin folk is kinfolk. Like, that wasn't always the case. So yeah, it was huge. And like the influence of Coogler like coming on and producing that project is just like something that makes me really excited for Shaka's future. I think this is his second movie. So he may be on a similar trajectory as Coogler, who did Fruitvale Station and then got Creed and Black Panther, like small biopic and then two big IPs, right? And so Shaka has now done his biopic. So now like when Marvel or Disney comes calling, like he's got an opportunity to like really
Right.
reach, a large audience.
Yeah,
So really
yeah,
excited
yeah.
for his potential.
That's excellent. That's awesome. Yeah. Very cool.
So I want to ask, since we brought up Spike Lee and spoke about his film in contrast to this one, we're talking about Shaka King. Let's talk a little bit about directors. So with Spike Lee, he's just been directing for such a long time. So what is this moment like? Do you think for him? I mean, we can't speak for him, but coming all this way and working so hard to get a message out, and then seeing directors like Shaka King come up. I guess, what is this moment like for Black directors?
Yeah, specifically Spike Lee. I bet he's a little upset that he's not here tonight. The Five Bloods is one of the big snubs just across so many categories tonight. We'll get into that later, but I'm sure he wishes he was here. But I think Spike recognizes that he's like part of the old vanguard, and that it's time to like start ushering in a new generation. Like Cougar's got a head start, right? Like he's produced Judas and the Black Messiah, so he put that cosign on Shaka. So I'm sure Spike, he does a great job with his production company, 40 Acres and a Mule, about like, those same things, educating and celebrating and like training and uplifting the next generation. Spike's an old head, and he knows that. So, or at least I hope he does. So I think, but branching out from just Spike and like looking at Black directors as a whole, I think it's a really big moment. And like, this is a huge like win for us, like both in the nominations and in the potential wins that we're looking to snag tonight. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, there's something special, I think, about Judas and the Black Messiah in that it's not a Oscar bait film, yet it's in the Oscar. It's being nominated as an Oscar, And I think when we talk about Oscar bait, we talk about films that usually highlight some kind of prejudice, and where. I'm making a kind of a blanket statement here, so feel free to challenge me on this. But it's for the most part, it's the films about people of color or people who are oppressed or in like generally groups that are underrepresented and them having to overcome like mostly white supremacy, colonialism, what have you. And this is a story where that is the theme, but it's not about that necessarily. Am I wrong, Calvin? This seems like it's a story about these two people who had like difficult choices to make and like kind of what happened. Yeah,
very much so. It's like covered in we got another one here.
Oh,
Chloe
we're
Zhao.
overlaid.
Oh wow. So I'll read this one. Chloe Zhao, Emerald Fennell break new ground as the 6th and 7th women to be nominated for Best Director at the Oscars. This is the first time 2 women have competed for the top honor in the same year.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier about we don't want this to be an anomaly. It should be the most talented people rising to the top, and we just want to see it happen consistently.
Yeah.
So.
Hopefully we can get to a point where we're not counting anymore, where it's like Denzel is the first and, Chadwick is the third, and like, we can like stop the counting of the thing. And
I know.
It can
it's like, who is that for, really? Like, honestly, who is that for? I don't know if I'd ever want
them. They know who they are, and it's for them. Like, look at us, we did 4. We're up to 4. Anyone count? Yeah.
It's definitely not for the ones who are the ones who are, with this badge, like this, It feels like a Girl Scout like badge where it's like, oh, I'm the first, intersectional, whatever the category is,
Yeah,
it's not for me.
I just wanted to touch on what you guys were saying before about, or Ahmed, what you were saying about like, in a way, like films involving whiteness, and you were saying how Judas and the Black Messiah is in the background, but that's an interesting thing because maybe there's this idea, or I want to ask what you guys think, that if there's like, the film isn't about white people or they're not a part of it or like a main character, is there this idea that people won't be interested? And I think it opens up this whole conversation of, if we tell stories from diverse perspectives, do we think people won't watch or something? So what do you guys think about that?
It's a great question. I want Calvin to lead off that if you don't mind, sir.
Yeah, it's a topic of relatability, and trying to get past what the person looks like versus trying to understand what they're going through. like I get down with Wes Anderson. Like Wes Anderson's not telling a lot of stories about my people, but like I like Wes Anderson. Like
Yeah.
Moonrise Kingdom is not about like two white kids who fall in love.
Right.
Like it's just
Right.
about two kids who fall in love.
Right.
So doing the inverse, like, can we look at something like Moonlight and not go, that's a black story? Like, no, like other people like go through that and have that struggle. So I think if you can get more people to understand that core concept, that foundation, it's like, hey, it's not always about like seeing the color or the gender, but it's more so like, what is the story about?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's there's like there are stories that where the color of someone's skin, their background, their ethnicity, what have you, is like integral to the plot of the film. It's integral to the elements that the character is dealing with, right? But to say that it needs to, I think the issue comes up with similar to what Calvin says with relatability, where we're not looking at films and thinking, okay, how does this character relate to just a white male character, which I feel like is usually the default.
Right.
So we're like there's a way of us kind of just expanding our empathy, for characters who are represented by actors who don't look like us or don't come from our backgrounds, and then being able to acknowledge and appreciate what they're going through. I think Parasite is a good example of that, of us kind of collectively being able to empathize and connect with these characters who are not speaking our language. They're not even in our country. They're going, but yet their story is so universal and it's so personal that we can all connect with it in a really deep way and a legitimate way. So yeah, I think that kind of was related to the question.
No, I love Parasite, and I love that you bring that up, because the other thing I think is interesting about Parasite is that class struggle is something that is unfortunately universal. So no matter where you are, you can relate to their story, or at least understand it. And I think that the thing about good storytelling is that it can relate to anyone. If you tell like a good, narrow, specific story and just tell like that one singular story and focus on that, if it's a good story, anyone will be able to relate. So I think it brings up this idea of, then who is Hollywood making movies for? These big blockbuster films, is it about the faces or having attractive people on it? Is that what you're trying to get people to connect to, or is it really a story and storytelling? So if it's more, then we definitely do need to change things up. But
yeah, I feel like actually this kind of makes me think of The Sound of Metal film. It's another picture that's up for Best Picture. It's nominated because so the star of that film is Riz Ahmed, and he plays a drummer who is losing his hearing, and so his world kind of changes very dramatically after this kind of like experience that he's going through. Now, the character's name is like Reuben Stone, I believe, or Reuben Smith. I don't 100% remember, but it's not like Riz Ahmed is from, I think he's Pakistani, but grew up in London or in England. So the name is not Pakistani at all. His character doesn't speak Urdu. There's no real ethnic reason for there's nothing about Riz Ahmed's ethnicity that feeds into the story, but yet it is still like so I finished it today. It's like a perfect movie. It's just like a beautiful, emotional, just like it's amazing. We can get more into it, but the only reason I bring that up is because there are stories like where Judas and the Black Messiah, it's really relevant that those characters are black. It's very important that the character playing Fred Hampton is black, right? So that's relevant to the story and relevant to the things that are going on in the film. But in Sound of Metal, it's not at all. Like that character could be played by anybody. In fact, there's only one comment about what this character looks like. It's in the beginning. He's talking to his girlfriend, like, "Oh, I kind of look like oh shoot, what's his name in The Fly? Who's in The Fly? No, yeah, but
Jeff Goldblum.
Goldblum, right? He's like, "Oh, I kind of look like Jeff Goldblum." Like that's like the one little thing we even get about like what he looks like, right? So, and that's another thing that I think, at least like my personal kind of journey through this has been like, that's what I want. I wanted like race to not even be an issue. I don't even want to talk about race. I want to just see people of color on TV and just prove that we can be people without just being compared to white men or whiteness. You know what I mean? Without the context of whiteness. So this film accomplishes that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I was right in this feeling, because I think I've changed my opinion on it, which is like I kind of would love to see a story about maybe a British Pakistani character, you know, going through this same thing. Like, what would that look like? That'd be dope, you know. So it's like there's always these multitudes of how representation, whose representation really satisfying, you know, like what are we doing this for?
Yeah, I actually think you bring up a really good point, because I think that like as a person of color, there's these moments where you're like, you know what, I just want to like, I want to see movies where it's there and it's not talked about. And at the same time, like our like unique histories in the United States are often not known or represented even to us. So then there's also a moment where you might want to see, like, I want to see a movie about the Black Panthers because I want to connect to that, you know, or Riz Ahmed, like being South Asian, there's so much that I don't know. Like, I want to see more of those stories. And South Asian Americans, we have a whole history that a lot of us don't know about. So I think that it's kind of, maybe we want to see things that reflects our complex feelings about our own identities. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. Calvin, go ahead, please. I'd love to.
Yeah, I think so often we just like, it's just about like taking what we're given and trying to make the best of it again, right? Like they only want to hear about like our slave stories or our athletic achievements, you know, so we have to play within that wheelhouse. But that's difficult for the viewers, you know, who look like those characters on screen, because we're tired. Like I personally like just get fatigued of that sometimes. Like I'm tired of seeing us, you know, brutalized and murdered on film, because like I look on Twitter and I turn on the news and I see that already. Like I like movies to be an escape as well. So like getting more movies that like are just like The Photograph, you know, another the Keith Stayfield joint, and Issa Rae. It's just like just a romantic comedy. Like we can't have romantic comedies. Like, you know, we can't just go to the movies and just like see ourselves like fall in love or like buy a house or buy a zoo. Like I don't care. Like Matt Damon's probably gonna have to get to buy a zoo. Like that's cool. Like can we? So
there's no reason that character had to be Matt Damon. There's no reason that could not have been Lakeith Stanfield buying a zoo.
So a lot of times it's just like the stories that like we get to tell often are the stories about our history, and not necessarily like dipping into like that what we call Afrofuturism role, where it's like, you know, the Black Panthers and the coming to Americas and like just like getting to dream a little bit. Just the scales are uneven. It's like 70-30 right now, and looking for more balance and looking for more abilities to just tell those just sort of like day in the life stories, I think would be awesome.
No, I completely agree. And I also think that, again, we were talking a little bit about, again, Oscar's so white and having a sort of white infrastructure with a lot of like heads of studios who are white. Maybe they're the ones who are like, oh, I want to hear that history or that story, or like let's talk about like white guilt and like always have that narrative and not just have Black people being happy living their lives, you know. So that's like a big part of it too. Is like maybe even when you think they're trying to help, it's like it's not, you know, it's not giving you the diversity of stories that everyone wants to see. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation about diversity, but I did actually want to talk about another topic of diversity when it comes to the Oscars. Calvin actually had a really interesting point earlier. He was talking about abolishing Best Actor and Actress categories because guess what? Reinforces a gender binary. And I thought that's really interesting. I honestly hadn't thought much about that. So I want to talk to you both about that. Do we need gender?
That was Ahmed's. That was Ahmed's joint. I can't take credit for that.
No, not at all.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. I have some thoughts about it.
Yeah. Just whichever one whoever is gonna let us ramble about it is what this is.
Your idea. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. No. So you know the idea behind labeling Best Actor and Best Actress just seems really, really antiquated, and I feel like it's not just relevant to the intersectional kind of gender identities that progressively we should be taking as a nation. Like we should be acknowledging these kind of intersections of gender, but it's actually less about, to me personally, I think it's less about kind of having that representation necessarily, and more of just like, it's just not accurate. It's just not like, we're divvying this up unnecessarily. We're basically saying that the playing field is not even, and we need to be giving women more of a. The thing is, the playing field is not even necessarily, but that's not. I don't think having two gender categories is going to fix that. The fact is, they're both doing the same jobs. Men and women both do the same jobs as actors. It should just be actors. Like they're competing on the same field. Like women do just as good a job at acting as men do. Like it's kind of insane to me to separate them just based on gender. And it kind of brings up like more questions about what are we going to do? Like, where does this go? Like, who is this for? I think we've mentioned that a lot. Like who really is this for? And I feel like if, like, for example, let's take a look at who's nominated for best actor and best actress.
I got it pulled up.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Riz Ahmed for Sound and Metal. This is actors in a leading role. Riz Ahmed for Sound and Metal, Chadwick Boseman, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Anthony Hopkins, The Father, Gary Oldman, Mank, and Stephen Minari.
Cool.
And the nominees for actress in a leading role, let's see: Viola Davis, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom; Andra Day, The United States versus Billie Holiday; Vanessa Kirby, Pieces of a Woman. Wow, that was a movie. Frances McDormand, Nomadland; and Carey Mulligan, Promising Young Woman.
Okay. So right there, I feel like there's absolutely no reason that those actors could not go head to head in a competition, like competing for who's the best actor. I really don't think, or if you really want to do it, just make it maybe have two winners of the best actor category if you really wanted to make it more available, because the fact of the matter is most actors are going to be men, are going to be white men, right? And so women do have like a disadvantage when it comes to that. But I feel like the issue is so much more nuanced than just throwing another category in there and like saying it's done. It's the same job. It just like, I don't know. That's anyway. I could keep rambling about this, so please stop me, Calvin.
Yeah, I have a question on just sort of interrogating that a little bit more and seeing how we can work towards a solution. In your mind, if we just make it one category, do you certainly expand the numbers of nominees, right? You go from 5 to 10, you would say?
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you got 10 nominees. So if we just take the nominees from this year, like, and we add in sort of like the snubs element, like I'm dropping probably one of these actresses for Delroy Lindo and Da 5 Bloods. So now you have 6 men, 4 women, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like, what's to stop that from going to 7 to 3, 8 to 2? And so do you create more of a problem by removing those safeguards and just like, let's say like this year, it feels like actresses are a little bit more stacked than actor. But, next year we could get a situation where, we get 7 male biopics and like they all get nominated. Right. So how do you begin to like, you're putting a lot of trust in the Academy at that point. And, you know what I'm saying? So what are your thoughts on like expanding the limit, but also like, if you remove those safeguards, like the potential imbalance that can happen across nominations?
For sure. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that's kind of what maybe this is why this rubs me the wrong way so much, is because this seems to be like such a cop out on behalf of the Academy, right? It's almost like they're saying we're stopping ourselves from being prejudiced. Like we're limiting ourselves on the, amount of women we can just throw under the bus for all of these kind of like just, not any more exceptional performances, right? But the fact is, the reality is that like most movies that are getting made are going to be written, directed, and starring men. If we're talking about actors, just most movies are just going to have men in them in starring roles. So like you're right. Basically, if we were to combine the category, like I'm suggesting we should, we're just going to get a lot less women nominated. And so I don't know. It's hard for me to reckon with. Honestly, it's hard because I want, like, I have actors as friends, and I remember being in high school, my theater friends, they didn't want to be considered actresses. They wanted to be actors. So it was just beaten out of me really, really at a young age, like not to regard people who identify as female as actresses, right? Because they're actors, they're professionals. And so
they've changed categories before, like they've really just the title of the category and its purpose. Like best foreign language film to best international film.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't put it past them to make some adjustments as, they become more progressive and start to
Yeah.
include more people who identify not as traditional sort of pronouns or, some of these titles.
Right.
So I would hope that we can just continue to move in a more progressive and open and accepting direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, fix the Oscars. Maybe that's our next show when we can just identify all the problems. And
maybe we should just come up with what we think the Oscars should be. I feel like maybe that's what I'm trying to do, and instead of trying to patch up and band-aid this broken white system. I just need to make my own, or I don't need help, of course. Yeah. Because maybe this isn't. There's not an easy answer here. Yeah.
But you bring up a great point. And I think that's some of the difficulty of living in our world is identifying a problem and then trying to think of a solution and thinking, well, this is realistic. Like if we abolish the categories, then probably all men would win and then there would be no women. So that's, it's hard to imagine that there would be a year where it would be all women and no men, If that happened, hey, maybe it's a signal that things are more equal than we thought, because the fact that that could actually happen is not even something we'd expect at this point. So, but yeah, and I think that, even as you said, the word actor and actress, like feminizing the word as if it's coming off of the word actor. And in a way, I'd love to know more about Hollywood history and the way that actresses have been treated and respected. I think that that's a great conversation to get into and learn more about. And I'm glad that they're being recognized. And I actually wanted to ask you too, I don't know if you can speak to this, but I know when we talk about I'm part of Fine Bet, so we're going to go to sports for a second, but men's and women's sports. So men's sports get way more attention, more funding, and honestly, it's called basketball instead of men's basketball. I read a really interesting piece, and add for sports because we always say women's sports and sure to enunciate that. So do you think that actresses get the same respect in Hollywood today, or do you think that best actor in that category and performance is more weighted and respected and discussed?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's probably not even yet. I think that you have a few key players that are Hollywood's chosen, where it's we'll listen to that person or we'll nominate that person a bunch. And these people are definitely deserving, but it's kind of a safe way for them to get that okay, we got our females stamp. So I think that kind of I mentioned earlier, measuring progress, I think we're moving in a better direction, but I think there's still just an isolated few who we see time and time again. So Frances, she has a chance to win her third Academy Award tonight. That's wild and a huge achievement. But she's definitely one of those people who is yeah, we'll just ride with her. And if she's in a movie, she'll get a nomination. And I love her stuff, so it's tough because are they wrong? No, but kind of.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. I think it's not even, but there's the Hollywood kind of staples, if Meryl Streep's up in a movie, she's going to get nominated at this point if she wants to be. I mean, I feel also she's earned her spot. Right.
Hey, do you want to come?
Yeah. Are you free on Sunday? You're not going anywhere. It's but I think it also depends on the movie though, too. I think there's these Winter's Bone was a movie that really skyrocketed Jennifer Lawrence into stardom because and that was just a really wonderful film. It was such a gritty, real, it was a great film. It was a great film. She deserved that award 100%. But then, there are some movies that win where I feel I don't know how much of a hot take this is necessarily, but I just didn't care for The Room very much, or not The Room. I didn't personally care for Room very much, but who was in that? Help me out here, please. Google. Brie Larson, right? So Brie Larson won the Oscar for that, and it's kind of I'm not on the Academy, right? This is all personal opinions from some guy in his room, right? But I feel I feel Jennifer Lawrence, acted the hell out of that role. And I'm sure, oh my God, you just told me, and I'm
Brie Larson.
Brie Larson. Oh,
Brie
God.
Larson.
I'm sure she acted the hell out of that role too. Like she brought to it exactly what she needed to do for herself and for the director, and apparently a lot of people liked it. But I think it really just depends on the film that really determines the weight of the award. Like I don't know if Brie Larson. So for example, I don't know if Brie Larson is taking that Academy Award and then using it, pivoting it into a career into other films, right? Like, I mean, first of all, she's so established by now. She's been in a ton of really well acclaimed movies. She's like an industry professional at this point, like standard. Once you hit, I feel like once you hit Marvel, you're in. You're in the club.
Sure.
But you know, for Jennifer Lawrence, that was a huge thing. Winning that Oscar was huge. That's how she got all of the films following, like recognized, and so. Anyway, yeah, I think the movies do have a part to play in it. It's not just like who's winning the award. It's like for what movie and the impact of that movie.
And I don't want any of the Reddit trolls to come for you. Jennifer Lawrence, she was nominated for Winter's Bone. She won for Silver Linings Playbook.
Oh, dang, you're right. You're right. Ah, that's right. Okay, my bad. Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize for getting that wrong.
The Jennifer Lawrence hive is like only second to the beehive. Like they'll come. Like they'll come. Okay. So I just wanted to protect you.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Looking out for me.
No problem.
I actually have a fun fact about Room since you brought it up. I actually saw the movie at a film festival in Dubai.
No kidding.
Really?
Yeah, and I was very shocked. I thought this nice glamorous film festival, and then the movie was Room. I knew nothing about it.
Right.
Whoa, that's really heavy. So
yeah, what did the Dubai audience think of Room? I don't know anything about people in Dubai, but
no, it's really international. There's a bunch of different people there.
Sure.
It's such a people from all over there. But I was studying abroad there, and it was so cool. One of my friends knew someone who was working there, got me the tickets. First time I red carpet, so that was fun. But
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but
Ahmed, you make a really good point about like the movie also being an impact as much as like impacting the nomination. Like we have to also remember like these are things that are built into like people's contracts, and like there is campaigning that happens. Like if you get nominated for an Oscar, you get X amount of points like on the back end. Like that happens, and that's a real thing. So like movies and like production companies like will hold their movie till Oscar season. Like all of that is like so much a part of it. So I think that's just that's a really big point to bring up.
Yeah. The economics of the Oscars is really what I think sticks out to me the most. And it's kind of like, so for me, I think I said this earlier, but I'll just say it on air. Like I feel like every Oscar nominated movie should be a movie that's directed by a person of color or a woman. I feel like every single one, like let's just omit every other, like any white man that wants to make a movie. And I don't mean to be coming for white men and all. I'm just a joke. It's a joke. I'm not serious. Please don't come for me, Reddit. Oh my God. But like, I mean, seriously, because the economics of the Oscars, like you said, are so real. And I think that's kind of where the deficit for films that feature people of color, are directed, written, and star people of color. That's where the issue is. It's like we just don't have the money's not coming to those films. Money's not going to them. It's just not happening. And we can debate on the reasons why that is, but the reality is that's why we don't see as many of those films being made. Like Crazy Rich Asians, there was a lot of money in that, and that movie made a lot of money. So like there's there's outliers in this, but I think generally speaking, it's a money situation. I want more awards on films that even I maybe not like, but if it's a person of color, I'm on board, man. Let's get that paycheck, So that's my ramble about
And I agree with you. Just like if I can take a half step in that direction, like I would love to go to a ceremony or watch a ceremony when it's like we were truly celebrated. And like you say, like every nominee and nomination was a woman or a person of color. But on the reverse side, like I don't want to be viewed as lesser than. Like I want Judas to compete with, whatever y'all think is top tier. Like, you know what I mean? So like I do both, you know what I'm saying? Like
right. Yeah.
So I
We
guess
just
that's
need
called
more.
the BET Awards. I don't know
There you go.
what they've been up to. They haven't tuned in a little bit. But
They still do those?
yeah.
Dang. Yeah, I haven't renewed my
Probably.
CBS subscription yet. I haven't checked that out yet.
I
Yeah.
actually wanted to like talk to you guys since we're talking about best actresses and all these things and Oscars so white. I want to talk about women of color represented in film. So I think we were talking about this a bit earlier. Was Dominique Fishback potentially snubbed because she wasn't nominated for best actress? And then what's the landscape like for women of color getting these best actress nominations?
Short answer is it's hard. Hard is the short answer. Ahmed, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean that sets it up pretty well, man. I think it's, it's like I just think of the assembly line of like how films get made, how they get greenlit. Where do these ideas come from? Like where do these movies like start? And all the way down the line is where it goes to casting. And it starts with the story. And if the story has a woman of color in it, it baked into the story there, then there's hope, right? But that potential is already pretty low. I love Shape of Water. That's one of my favorite movies. I loved it before. I didn't even know it was going to be nominated. I don't know if it should have won or not. That's a whole other internet debate, right? But I just love Guillermo del Toro. That's one of my favorite movies.
That's there Ahmed at twitter.com. If
you're right. Come at me.
No, it was an enjoyable watch, definitely.
An enjoyable watch. That's all I can hope for.
You're kind of like, oh no, because the Holocaust is a part of it, right? Some years it feels like there's a bunch of heavy hitters, and then other years it's like, I guess that's the one that won. So.
Sometimes you just want a cute romantic movie with a fish man. Sometimes that's all you need. That's all you need. But my point is, so I love that movie. But I think the only person of color in that entire film is Octavia Spencer, who plays the best friend of the main character. Right. It could not get more tropey than that. Like they're janitors. You couldn't elevate anyone of color any more than that. Just anyway. So that being said, I don't know if like Octavia Spencer's character in that film was written to be black. I don't know if that was in the story, but the thing is that just kind of goes to show that like it's really hard. It's just hard to get them in these films. Like that's why a film like Hidden Figures is such a big deal. It's because you're not giving women of color an opportunity to be on screen, but you're giving them a platform so they can show their stuff, so they can prove just how good of an actor they are. And it's tough. I think it comes down to money. Like I think one thing that gives me hope is the television resurgence. Like there are a ton of studios that are kind of popping up now that are helmed by women, like just really acclaimed actors. Like Drew Barrymore has a production studio. What was that one? It's a really, really great series on Hulu. Little Fires Everywhere. Who did that?
The ones with Kerry Washington.
That's Reese Witherspoon. Reese
Witherspoon. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that Reese Witherspoon got the rights to that book because I'm pretty sure it was a novel, and her studio was the one that kind of developed it and produced it. So like I think that it comes down to money. Like who's putting money into these shows that can have the stories that have women of color in them. That's my ramble about it. That's just where my mind goes. What do you think, Alvin?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like, it starts at the top, right? Like we have our indies featuring, women and women of color. And we have, like you said, our TV shows. Unfortunately, sometimes those shows have a hard time getting recognized. Shout out, I May Destroy You. But it starts at the top. Like if we can get Tessa Thompson like in an MCU movie, like that's viewership. Like people are gonna see her. Right. And she's there, she's playing Valkyrie, and like she also gets to play, in Creed. And so like she's going to be recognizable and be sellable. So if more of the like big studios and the big IPs can like do that for us, I think that goes a long way, because the indies are gonna happen. But it's all about the money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Riz Ahmed earlier, like Rogue One. Like was huge
Right.
for him. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I really look to those sort of, lack of a better word, tastemakers, if you will.
Yeah.
It's up to them to like do the casting and like get us out there. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, like we're not always the one making those decisions or like have a seat at that table. So it's in a way, it does also start with those smaller projects,
Right.
and like working our way up.
Yeah.
So good, not great, essentially is where we're at. There's just like we were talking about Issa Rae earlier. Like from the YouTube to HBO to like now like doing feature films, producing feature films, probably writing and directing future, like she gets to be a person in power, and she gets to have a seat at that table and like lead up the next generation, like we were talking about earlier. So
Yeah.
like,
I think you said something interesting. Oh, sorry. No, please keep going.
I'm on that wine.
No, yeah, okay. I think you said something that was really big. I think it was that they were a useful product, and I think that's like the ugly secret that I don't think we've even brought up yet, is the fact that like actors are products to be consumed by us and to be used to sell the stories, the films, right? So like that's really what it comes down to. Like you can put Scarlett Johansson in anything, and it's gonna sell. Like that's why she's in everything. That's why she was in Ghost in the Shell, right? Because not because she was perfect for that role, or even she was passionate about that role. They needed a big star to sell that movie, because it was a really expensive movie. So once we, I guess the cynical answer could be like, once we get more people of color that are sellable as products, then we're going to start seeing them more awarded, just because they're going to be on screen more. They're going to get more opportunities to be great, to really show their stuff. I loved that Hulk movie, the Thor Hulk movie with Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. Right. That's not my favorite performance of hers. I don't think she was elevating the material or like her best work.
Okay.
But
Hold on. We may need to transfer to an MCU podcast in a little bit, because Thor Ragnarok, number one, is elite, and number two, Valkyrie. Whoo, that's almost peak Tessa Thompson for me. I mean, like I love her in Creed for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to see Passing at Sundance though, and she's also really good in that. And I also really like Silver Love. I like a lot of Tessa Thompson films, but we're not going to stand for any Valkyrie slander, essentially, is what I'm saying.
Look, not slander. But I just like her in Annihilation much more. Like I've seen her. Well, okay. We can that's a rabbit hole we can dive into, Calvin, for sure. I think it's got our name on it for sure. It's got our name on it.
To bring back the attention here to the Oscars, I'd like to direct you both to our ticker down at the bottom of the screen. So, either of you guys have a case for the biggest snub this year? And do you guys want to talk about this?
I mean,
this is good. Now, I will both. So 3 of these films actually made my 2020 top 10 list. Palm Springs, Tenet, and Dick Johnson is Dead. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know who chose these. It wasn't me, I promise. The only one I haven't seen is Miss Juneteenth. But I'm high on 3 of these films. I'm sad Dick Johnson is Dead didn't get any votes, because it's a really good documentary. It's on Netflix. People should definitely go watch it. But yeah, it sounds like we should be getting into Tenet, 61%. Most of the people feel like that's the biggest snub.
Yeah. I'm a little shocked by that, I guess, but maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't be. Like it's I'll start it off. I loved Tenet. I loved it to my core. That was the only movie I saw in 2020 in the movie theater, so maybe I'm a little biased in that way. But it was. I said that's right. I said this earlier, and I just because there's no other way for me to say it. But the fact that the main character, who was a super awesome ass-kicking spy, was black, just that made it for me. That made I was so invested, like emotionally, my spirit was riding on his shoulders. Just the sheer fact that he was kicking ass, looked amazing in those suits. And he was black. That was just, for me, huge. And I don't know how else to say it. Nolan, please, Calvin, chime in here.
Yeah, Tenet was similar to Judas and the Black Messiah in that it was like a high rewatch for me. Like I saw it when it came out, and then I bought it when it came out, and then I probably went and saw it again in theaters, and then I watched it again because like I owned it. I love Tenet. I completely agree with you. I think it's definitely in the like higher tier of like Nolan films. I think it is a huge snub. I think it is a pretty big missed opportunity. I think Christopher Nolan is going to be one of those people that ends up like Scorsese, and that we're going to look back and be like, oh, we forgot to give him an Oscar. And we may like award one of his lesser products.
Right. As
films,
just like a, yeah.
And that's unfortunate because like Christopher Nolan is like a filmmaker. He's like part of the current vanguard. He makes a lot of like highly like entertaining films, highly compelling, like really thought-provoking, you know, trending more on the side of original versus like remake and IP and stuff like that. And save his, you know, Dark Knight trilogy. But I think that he's also someone like who really loves and appreciates film. And like he cares about the medium, and like he penned like, you know, essays and articles about like saving movie theaters, etc. So I think he's going to end up with like a makeup Oscar if we're not too careful. I think Tenet would have been an excellent opportunity to at least award screenplay. I think it was one of the better screenplays this year. And I think I echo everything you say about John David Washington as the protagonist in that movie. I think him and Robert Pattinson and even Kenneth Branagh just like really like John David Washington and Robert are just like having a charm fest. Like throughout.
They are. Absolutely,
they're just like hanging out, just like hamming it up, and it's just like so fun and entertaining. Right. I'm not sure why Robert Pattinson looks like Christopher Nolan in all of his scenes, but you know, that's kind of difficult to unpack.
Right. We'll have to unpack that.
Yeah. And Kenneth is like he's on fire in every scene, but he's like the blue part of the fire. It's like really subtle, but it's also like the hottest part.
Yes,
like my man is just eating it up, and so I loved everything about the movie. I think it was super awesome. And it's unfortunate that it can't get recognized. Like I said, I think we're just going to get to a point where we forgot about Christopher Nolan because he makes more of the sort of high entertainment type stuff. And like, unless he does something like Dunkirk again, it's not going to be easy for him to like get into like the Academy.
Nolan is totally in his own sphere. Like he always kind of has been. I think the most kind of like, you know, general like appeal films that he did was the Dark Knight trilogy, and then right after that he was off on his Inception. He was just like off on his own, like he was completely in his own world, and he's been there ever since, thankfully, because like he's just such an innovative filmmaker. You know, it's not flawless, but I think the thing is all of the flaws of his films are just Nolanisms. They're just things you get when you watch a Nolan film, you know, so it was. He's definitely like he loves the medium. He loves us. He loves movie lovers. You know, he's given us what we always want. That Tenet has such a spectacle of a film where and with all of Nolan's films, you have to rewatch it because the plot is so complicated. You're gonna need to dig your teeth into it. But the best part about it is the first time you watch it, you can just you smooth your brain over and just let the pretty images just gloss over you. Like I was 30 minutes in, I was like, I don't think I understand what's happening, but I still loved it. It was still like such a feast for the senses.
And I agree with you on rewatchability. I think that's an overlooked sort of metric of evaluation across any film, because like if you just take it like nuts and bolts, like from pre-production to final cut, like these movies are, you know, 3 to 4 to 5 years in the making. And that's not even counting like, oh, I had an idea, let me jot this down and then pitch it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like when we watch it for the first time, especially a Nolan film, it is like an unfair to critique to say like, oh, I didn't understand that. It's like Nolan's been ideating on that for 4 years. Like, do you think you're gonna get it the first time? Like
you're not supposed to get
that's not even a possibility.
That's not even an option to get it.
So I definitely agree with like I just wish like we had more patience and you know we were more into that sort of thing. It's like, okay, I didn't quite understand it the first time. And there's always going to be like things you pick up on, and new things that you see, or maybe you didn't quite catch that the first time. There's always going to be things like that.
Yeah.
But like specifically Nolan movies are designed for like that sort of, okay, I know broad strokes. Let me go back in for a little bit more detail. Yeah, exactly.
Soak it in. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, my second viewing in the theater, I took a little notepad. I was like, I gotta.
Did you really? You're gonna have to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So I can ask you note his highlights, because it looks like they should have been nominated for something. Robert Pattinson. Go?
Oh man, if we could make our.
Oh no, there was just a photo, and it said that I don't know if there's a nomination for hair. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Oh, hairstyling. Yeah.
Oscars.
Yeah. His best look yet. His best look.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if you pull any screen, including this one, if you pull any screen of Robert Pattinson in a suit, like it's just like, is that Nolan? And you don't know why. This happened with Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, why? Can we get a side by side? I don't know if we can do that quick enough, but like this happened with Leo and Inception. It's like, why does he kind of look like Christopher Nolan? It's like you just don't really know. But yeah, both him and John David Washington just looking like two tall snacks, just a tall glass of water.
For real. They really
are. I was actually just looking, I was thinking, where do I know John David Washington from? And I'm a Ballers fan, and he's Ricky Jarrett. And I was like, hey, what? So I'm actually to see his career movie. I think he was just an enjoyable character, but to see him moving on, taking such serious roles, I mean, dude, I love to see it. I'm excited. Yeah.
I don't think I've known someone to explode on the scene quite like he has before. Like going from football to just headlining huge. Like I think his first film was Black Klansman. Am I right? Is that his first film?
I think that was his feature debut. That's right. And then most recently he did Malcolm and Marie with Zendaya. That was a Netflix joint.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for what he's going to be doing and what he's got lined up.
Big things, man.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
That's awesome.
Speaking of appearances and breaking on the scene, we have a fun little game that we're going to do. And after that, I might pass it on to you guys if you want to continue the conversation for Tenet. Unfortunately, I have to go soon, but I want to play this game with y'all. And that is, we're going to look at a few seconds of the movie trailers. Now, I haven't seen these movies, so... Ahmed, I don't know how many you've seen. I know you've seen some, not others. Calvin, I know
not many.
Seen all of them, but we're just gonna throw them up and try to guess what the movie's about. So we got them queued up and ready to go. So let's get started. Oh, so we're gonna start with My Father. So that's the first film. So again, I haven't seen it. I'm not sure what it's about.
I'm not leaving my flat. I am not leaving my flat. This really is my flat, isn't it?
I really want you guys to tell me what the movie is based on that clip.
Oh no.
Okay. Let me do a quick synopsis.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins has lost his memory. He's suffering from dementia.
That's what I was
thinking. But not just that. He actually has fallen into a parallel universe where he does not exist. So the people trying to kick him out of his flat, that's his flat in his universe, but he got sent to this other one. So they're all very confused as to what he's doing there.
Into the Hopkins verse is what you're pitching.
There you go. Exactly. He's got to get back home. That's the movie I'm hoping to see anyway. Maybe my expectations are too high.
That's a wild movie. Okay. I was actually going to. I thought this was funny. Anthony Hopkins, love to see him, and then it is My Flat. I thought, oh man, is this about dementia or Alzheimer's? And I got quite sad. But that is also what I was thinking. His age, memory loss. But then going off the music, it does seem like it's supposed to maybe be this like funny moment. But I have no idea.
It's hard to tell.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. Yeah, go ahead, Calvin. Yeah, enlighten us.
So you guys got close. The movie is about Anthony Hopkins, and he is in sort of the late stages of his life, and his daughter is trying to like get him to understand a few different things. One, that she's moving to Paris. Two, that he's moving out of his flat. Now, what's interesting about this movie is that it employs a few different tactics that also keeps the viewer off guard. For instance, Anne, his daughter, will come into one scene, and then a different actress will come in and say, like, I'm Anne. And the viewer doesn't know, like, which is which either until, like, you continue to stay with it and move along. So
That's
multiple
cool.
scenes are played like more than once, and multiple lines are spoken more than once to, like, you know, sort of play off that idea.
Nice.
But it's quite good. It's very entertaining. A brisk 97 minutes, I believe. Highly recommend. The Father.
Nice, cool.
Cool. Look, glad to see it's nominated. Always love to see him in a film that's nominated. But we're gonna move on to Mank. So I feel like I saw a poster of this film, but let's take it away and see what it's about.
Mankiewicz, Herman Mankiewicz, New York playwright and drama critic, turned humble screenwriter, Mr. Hearst. This is a business where the buyer gets nothing for his money but a memory. What he bought still belongs to the man who sold it. That's the real magic of the movie.
Whoa. Okay. Is it Ed Wood meets Hail Caesar?
Does anyone know who Herman Mankiewicz is?
No, I feel like I read a description of the movie, but is
he wrote Orson Welles movie. I don't know which one.
You're
right?
close. You need to pick the.
Kane. That's it, right?
There we go.
Okay, I did
We're
read
working.
about.
We're working.
No, that wasn't just a good guess.
Yeah.
I saw Citizen Kane. That's cool, and then I just
yeah.
But go ahead and tell us what the movie's about. Just a little more.
Yeah. So you think this movie is about the making of Citizen Kane, but it's not. Not at all. Not even a little bit. It is about the process in which Herman went through to write the movie Citizen Kane. And so it sort of operates on like a traditional cross-cutting format where it's like showing you the writing process, but then flashing back to like those scenes to sort of give you a visual reference for them. It's quite good, and I'm really high on it. I forget where I put it in my top 10 of 2020, but it definitely made it on there. It got a ton of nominations. I don't think it's going to win anything. Maybe Amanda has a chance. I think she's nominated for Best Supporting. We'll see. But yes, it is about the writing of the script of Citizen Kane.
I'm a huge Fincher fan. At least I was when I was younger, and I still am, of course. But how does his? I want to see how his style translates to like black and white old classic Hollywood. Like, it's really fantastic. There was an interesting amount of discourse going on about the film when it came out because like he's using specific tropes of movie making from that era, but not all of them. And so that's interesting because Fincher is like really known and regarded as a perfectionist. Like some of his like take numbers go up. Yes, exactly. And so like some of like, you know, the technical people were coming out was like, well, the aspect ratio wouldn't be that, or the lighting wouldn't be that. So it's kind of interesting because usually Fincher would like nail that to the T, like down to the, you know, decimal point. But it's interesting to see him sort of operate just within that sort of old Hollywood bubble, but not confined to all of its tropes. Really excellent. I really do like it. I like Fincher when he is operating outside of that sort of traditional lens that he's viewed through. Like Zodiac is probably my number one Fincher. Like Seven is fantastic. Social Network is really, really high up there. But I do like when he explores like themes outside of like serial killers. Like cold, heartless characters that are just doing brutal things. So
Mank is really good. I really like it.
Cool.
Great to hear it. So we appreciate the recommendation, and we're going to move on to our next one. So that is going to be Nomadland. So I'm thinking Adventureland. I have no idea what this will be about, but let's see. Probably really wrong.
That you're homeless. Is that true? No, I'm not homeless. I'm just houseless. Not the same thing, right? No.
Very different from Adventureland.
Very different than Adventureland.
But I think we both have probably a good idea what this film is about. I mean, it seems like she's homeless, We don't know why. And I think you mentioned that she was nominated for Best Actress. So I'm expecting a dramatic film, very compelling. And I'm honestly really excited to see homelessness explored on screen, because I feel like this is a social issue that really doesn't get enough attention. But that's my little political aside. Go ahead, Afra. What do you think this is about?
I feel like they didn't even give her a script. They just brought her to set and told her, here's what your character's probably going to do, and then just let her go. Like, let her loose. Because Frances McDormand is a legend, and she can do literally no wrong. She can do anything. And so I feel that's just what I got from there. It's like,
that's true.
It's,
She embodied the role.
So you guys aren't far off. This is very much blends the line between fiction and documentary, honestly.
cool.
Francis, and I think there's only one other casted actor, but everyone else is like, real life nomads.
Oh, a non-actor.
So it's just kind of like, a day in the life story, like just set the camera up and watch what happens. It follows her as she deals with the loss of her husband and enters this nomadic lifestyle. And sort of just, we have a camera just like following her through this period of her life, and the ups and downs and what that means, and her just sort of learning and growing through this, and accepting this life she's chosen. So yeah, that's Nomadland.
Cool.
Probably going to win Best Picture, probably going to win Best Director. We'll see.
You think? Ooh, wow.
The energy is high.
Oh man, I really want Sound of Metal to win. It's just a perfect movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just also I'm biased because it's like the one movie that I really saw in depth and like absolutely loved.
Sure.
I think
Anyway.
when we talk about Best Picture that's going to win, it's also maybe, it sounds like this film is doing a lot of things differently, and maybe the power. And I think that people are always attracted to movies that feel like they're changing things or shedding light. So I feel like maybe that can weight film. There, like you're saying, Sound of Metal is a perfect film, and very well could be, but maybe when it's competing against that, if it doesn't have the social impact, just I don't know.
No, you're 100%. I think you're 100% correct. It's all about the zeitgeist. It's all about the context. And I think, that's why the Hurt Locker won when it was just which we can get into that later. But it was very much a cultural movement that supported that win rather than the merits of its filmmaking, So, okay, interesting. I'll have to check it out and see how it resonates with me.
Definitely.
Yeah, what do we got? What's we got?
So our next one is one that we've spoken a lot about, and that's Judas and the Black Messiah. So curious to see the clip.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa.
Woo.
I'm about to log off and go watch Judas and the Black Messiah again right now.
Did you buy it? Did you buy it?
As soon as I can, I will.
Okay, that's right. It's streaming. Yeah. If you hadn't told me everything about it already, I would say, actually, I would. That's kind of 50-50 on this is completely fictional or not. It's very clearly a Black Panther story, but there was so much energy and intensity to that trailer, and just David. How do you say his last name? Please correct me. David? Is it Daniel or David?
Daniel Kaluuya.
Daniel Kaluuya. Man, that was fire. That was palpable. I want to see that. I want to see him just that speech.
It looks like we do have a couple breaking news. I guess the ceremony has started, ? But the father seems to have won Best Adapted Screenplay, and Promising Young Woman has won Best Original Screenplay.
Oh, really?
Just a quick update for anyone watching us still and not the Oscars.
Can we have Promising Young Woman as a clip? Can we pull that up?
That's actually our next perfect transition.
Woo!
So
let's do it.
What are my hobbies? What's my name? Sorry, maybe that one's too hard.
Dude. Okay.
I like the
we were just talking about the zeitgeist. We were just talking about how culturally relevant a film needs to be. That movie sounds extremely relevant. This movie could not be more 2021 if it tried. That was hands down. Yeah. That was like a Twitter feed come to life. That was awesome.
What do you
I
what do you
hope,
think it's
you know,
about?
from the violin cues, them getting some Us kind of vibes from the Us trailer.
Yeah.
I'm hoping she murders a bunch of dudes. I'm hoping this is like a Kill Bill style revenge movie.
Oh yeah.
That would be pretty sick. And I like Carey Mulligan a lot. Never seen her in a performance I didn't like, so I think this could be fun. Plus, you know, murdering McLovin, I think would be just like the zeitgeist I need. I need that scene. That's the crossover I needed. So
yeah. So
promise.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's your turn.
Oh, well, since you won Best Original Screenplay, I'm thinking this is like a sharp, witty film, as we just touched on, but I'm wondering if it's autobiographical, as you said, like a zeitgeist film. So maybe it's the screenwriter's experiences. Yeah. And so you mentioned her age. I'm wondering if it's about, you know, it seems like she has this long blonde hair and thick makeup. So maybe she's going through some kind of crisis at her age and doing like these casual hookups. It's like, you don't even know my name. And yeah, I hear the violence of Toxic. So I feel like this is going to be like a funny, kind of edgy film, but also have a lot of moments of reflection. Maybe modern day woman. I don't know.
Ariana, you're really close. I just added a few little gaps. Carey Mulligan has lost a friend, and this friend was essentially raped at a party, and the charges were dropped against the people that were accused. So what she is on is like just sort of a revenge crusade, not only to those personal people, but any sort of predators that you would see in a club. So every night she sort of goes out and gets like super drunk. Gosh, I've done 3 air quotes this segment. I can't believe myself. And she pretends to be drunk, and like one of the nice guys comes and picks her up. And then she like turns the tables on them mid scene, and like McLovin was just completely caught off guard.
But she murdered him, like you said.
I'm not gonna say if she murders him or not.
Yeah.
I want you to watch the film.
I want to find out. Find out. You know, this is ultimate wish fulfillment, a la Django. That'd be cool.
So our next one is going to be the trial of the Chicago 7.
At the defense table, Abby Hoffman, Jerry Rubin, Dave Dellinger, Rennie Davis, Lee Weiner, John Freund, Tom Hayden, and Bobby Seale. These defendants had a plan, and the plan was to incite a riot.
Whoa, okay, cool. That was a really short clip, but I love all those actors. I mean, most of all the ones I recognized, I love. So I can imagine the script being pretty good. You know, you've got that kind of talent. I hope you're going to use them. It's going to take place in a courtroom.
Written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. So that should also
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
There. Yep. That I had a feeling. Yep. Okay. Yeah. You got to get Sorkin dialogue. You got to get the talent to do it. Cool. All right. I'm going to watch it just because I love Sorkin dialogue. I think he has like a little less restraint than I would like him to have when he comes to directing. But honestly, like the scripts always sell it. The scripts are just, no one can do what he does. You know, it's just great.
Yeah. So I feel like I recognize the name Bobby Seale, and then seeing that it's set in a courtroom, I'm going to guess that it's a historical movie or based on some true events. And I'm not sure. So I'm understanding that it was all like representatives, and then the plaintiff was Bobby Seale.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
here.
Yeah, the trial of the Chicago 7, they went to protest a demonstration, and they ended up getting accused, wrongly accused, essentially. They get put on trial. It's a classic Sorkin sort of courtroom drama with cutbacks to the actual events. But yeah, you guys are right on the money. It is biographical. So this did happen, and it is trying to depict the events as they actually happen. It's not as cutting as it needs to be. It's a little too sort of feel good, in my opinion.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, Trial of Chicago 7. Cool. If people are interested in this, they should also check out Steve McQueen's Small Axe anthology. specifically Mangrove, is about the Mangrove Nine of a similar name. Also, just pure fantastic film.
Ooh.
Recommendations. That's what we need.
Hey, Calvin's got the plug.
So we're going to move on to our next nominee, but I do want to say I'm actually going to sign off after this and let you two discuss The Sound of Metal and just while over that. But so our next clip, we're just going to watch a short clip of Minari.
미국 애들은 할머니랑 같이 방 쓰는 거 싫어한다던데.
I don't like Grandma.
걔는 안 그래요. 한국 애니까.
Grandma smells like Korea.
야, 뭐라고? 그랜마 스멜?
Oh my god, I love it. I did cheat a little bit. I actually saw the full trailer of Minari. I haven't had a chance to watch the film, but I actually saw that it won best. We spoke about this earlier this afternoon, but just the fact that it was for the Golden Globes, it was best international feature. I apologize, I don't know the exact name, but that's a whole conversation. But I do know what the movie is about. I don't know if I should spoil it, but I can just say that it's about a Korean American family set in the American South. And, just trying to build a life in their community. But I'm very excited to see the movie. From what I could see from the trailer, it was just that something that I think a lot of first generation kids relate to, which is there's this thing from like my home country or the country of my parents or grandparents, and it makes me uncomfortable or different at school. And he says that like grandma has a smell, she smells like Korea, as if it's a bad thing, I'm really looking forward to seeing those I don't know, just raw and real experiences of a multi-generational immigrant family. So immigrants, first generation, I'm second generation. So I love seeing those stories on screen, and I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. I feel like I've read about it. I listened to an NPR interview with the director, so I'm also kind of a little familiar with it. And it's one of these movies that I love watching movies in theaters, but when it comes to like kind of dramatic indie kind of pictures, I usually wait until they're streaming. And so I'm gonna wait for this one, I think, to stream. But if it wins Best Picture, I will rent it. That is my concession. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, it's up there to challenge Nomadland for sure. If they choose to split Best Picture and Best Director, giving Chloe Zhao Best Director and Minari Best Picture, that's definitely a scenario we're looking at.
Cool. Okay, cool.
All right, so our last one, and I'm going to hand it off to you guys. Thank you so much for having me again. So I'm going to let you two discuss. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've loved it. But thank you so much. But you two will The Sound of Metal. So
cool.
All right, thank you so much.
I think it's important that you stay here with us right now, Ruben. We're looking for a solution to this. Not this.
Okay. I mean, we both saw the movie. We know what's going on. Yeah, that was I haven't cried while watching a movie in a while. This one really got me. It was just,
I mean, talk about it. We haven't had a chance to unpack it in depth.
Yeah.
So tell me your thoughts.
So I think what really transformed this experience for me was the use of the sound production on this film. How essential that was to the viewing, not just the viewing experience, but like the experience of getting in his head. And I think it was used so well. Like when he's losing his hearing, where the sound is like getting sucked out of the room. When he's, how it goes back and forth between what he's hearing and what's happening around him. Just it was perfect. It was just like, it was the perfect times that they placed it. And then there were times when we needed to hear what was going on to understand what the story was about. I was just, whenever I watch a movie where I don't understand how they did it, but it works so well, this is kind of what it made me feel like.
I was watching it at home, just as many of us will be and are. And it was, I paused it as soon as the first sort of sound change happened. And I was like, I'm actually going to get my headphones and listen to this. And so I watched the rest of the movie with headphones. And so it was really a unique experience in that sound design aspect. And when they choose to implement those tactics, especially later in the film, it's like truly heartbreaking when he does the operation. And like, just like, it's like trying to tune a radio. It's like, this is not crystal clear at all.
No, this is not what I signed up for.
And at that time, he's like still so set on like, you know, from the clip, like we say, he's so set on curing this instead of this. And so that's really what impacted me, was that journey and how he begins to resolve that within himself. Was like, I can't worry about these anymore. I've got to worry about my mental and eventually my heart and what matters. And yeah, I really, really, really love this movie. And I thought for sure the main speech therapist, I think his name is Paul Raci. I may be pronouncing his last name wrong. But I for sure thought that's just like someone they found. But it turns out I think he is an actual actor, and he just like totally like embodied that role. And like that whole community of people was just like so real and so believable. And just like having a glimpse of that, just like on the opposite side, like I've had cancer and like chemotherapy and like Hodgkin's lymphoma and like all that stuff. So like seeing that like viewed through the lens of like a sound disability is just like really relatable. Like I know what those communities are, and I know what it means for like people of like the same struggle to like band together and like look to heal that thing, but also like move you forward in a like real and progressive way. Which is like truly impactful and like something I really appreciated from the film.
That's the thing, is like it didn't ever slow down. It took its time to really establish his journey throughout the film, but it didn't ever like belabor any points. It didn't ever it didn't do us any favors. Basically, it didn't dumb the material down for us. And I think that's also, it was a combination of the writing and the fact that like certain things aren't resolved by the end, which I loved, but also the fact of the cinematography itself was not polished. Like there are basically tons of scenes, and I don't know if I could not tell if this was intentional or not, but I almost don't care. But I would like to know that when he's sitting, when it's doing a shot reverse shot, when Riz Ahmed's sitting against someone else, he's out of focus. He's soft, like a little soft, and there's something behind him that's slightly in focus, and it just emphasized this whole like how he's not in the moment. How he like literally like physically cannot be in the moment because he can't hear what's going on, but he's also, we experience him as out of the moment because we can't see him as he's just a little soft, and I kept seeing it, so I have a feeling it's not intentional.
Yeah, and to contrast that, I believe what you're saying, and I like affirm that. And to contrast that, like at the end, that final shot, it's perfect clarity.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like he is like completely in sync.
Crystal clear.
It's really great. And I think that like this movie and like Riz Ahmed and like in particular is like really a showcase for like his abilities and like his performance. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, it's like really unrefined. Like there aren't a lot of like glossy shots or like, you know, high like effort cinematography. You know, not to take anything away from Judas and Messiah, a film that I love, but like when he goes up to make that final speech, like the camera is like on his back as he paces up the stairs. It cuts in and out between him and the reaction, and then there's like a lot of production happening around his big cinematic moment. But with Sound of Metal, it's very unrefined and it's very raw. And it's like relying a lot on Riz Ahmed to like carry that and like hit all those notes. So not one way is better, but just different tactics.
Exactly.
Like that's something that's really stuck out to me in the Sound of Metal. Just like it's very like, I don't think there's a lot of dolly shots. I don't think there's a lot of tracking shots.
No,
it's just,
I think it's all handheld.
It feels very handheld and like very raw and in the moment and like up close. So I really, really, really love this film.
Yeah.
I think in a different year, I think Riz Ahmed takes actor in a leading role.
For sure.
I think the momentum is just too strong behind Chadwick. Yeah, and if that's just sometimes the way it goes, you know, you can't control your competition in the situations.
Yeah, that you're 100% correct. Yeah, I think at the right time and place, and you know, he's got his opportunities. You know, I think he's gonna make his mark in the Academy one way or another. I think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But let's see. I think we're kind of winding down now. Let's do all right. So you just kind of briefly mentioned your best picture predict. Oh, did you throw in your best picture prediction yet?
Yeah, I would love for Judas to take it home. Like that's obviously like at least from the nominated categories and the nominated films, that's the one I'm most high on. But I think I'd like Minari to go home with the best picture win.
Sure.
I think it's completely deserving. A24 really doesn't have any misses in my book. If I'm not like personally connecting with their films, I'm like challenged by them. So I think both are good. But yeah, that's if I had to water gun to my head, if I had to make a pick, I'd probably pick Minari. But I really love Judas and the Black Messiah. I really love Mank and Sound of Metal. I'm really happy to see Promising Young Woman get recognized in the original screenplay category. So, but what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, you know, I think I'm just trying to think of this like politically and economically. Like, what are the biggest kind of what are the most likely candidates? And I think Minari. I would be very surprised if Minari didn't take it for Best Picture. It's kind of got everything going for it, and from an outsider's perspective, because I haven't seen it yet, but I feel like there's a lot to what's happening now. I think that we kind of want this soft story to kind of just fall on and just like sit with us and make us. It's such an American story too that I feel like that is. I always kind of see these films as like in some way or another bringing everyone together, whether it's whatever's on our minds, you know, whatever that might be. For Shape of Water, it was apparently a fishman love story, but for this, it's going to be, you know, just like a grounded, personal story of like an American immigrant family. Like, and I think that resonates a lot with people, and I think that might be it for it. But we'll see. We'll have to see. We'll have to wait. And
do you think the Academy can go back to back on the big Korean energy? Like Parasite won last year. Do you think they can give it to Minari this year?
You know, I feel like we got to see this. This is not a Korean movie. You know what I mean? This is an American movie. This is an American director, American actors, and an American story. But you know what? I cannot help but I know we're gonna get tweets, we're gonna get posts and think pieces about the Korean like invasion of the Academy of like filmmaking in America. I feel like it's you know, unavoidable, but I feel like it totally could be. I think they'll risk it. I think it's worth risking for them. We'll put it that way.
Sure. Sure.
So before we go, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this live stream. It's been really, really fun. This is the first time either Calvin or I have done this. So thanks so much for being a part of it. And we want to definitely thank Ariana for keeping us in check and keeping this ship going. We don't really know exactly what we're doing, so she was a huge help in being a professional guiding light for us. So yeah, I think that might be it. Calvin, do you have any parting words for our audience?
I don't watch more movies. Just watch more movies. That's my only thought. Shout out to Pop Dust for having me on. Really appreciate them. Follow them on all the socials, all the accounts, all the Instagrams, all the YouTubes and Twitters. You can't find me in on any of them yet because I'm still a ghost. But maybe I'll make an account or so.
It's to be determined, man. I want to bring Calvin in on the fold because I've been I've been making some articles on Pop Dust for a couple of years now, and I feel like this is the place to get your coverage for media. So definitely check out popdust.com, check out all the cool articles, and we'll see you guys next time. So thanks.
Thank you.